Welcome to the Globe Summit and Boston on the world stage, preparing for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. With us today are Martha Sheridan from Meet Boston, Charlie Davies from CBS Sports, and John Persh from the FIFA World Cup Boston 26 Organizing Committee. Welcome to you all, and thank you for being here with us to discuss this really big thing happening next summer, which I know feels like a long way away, but there's already so much activity. Soccer buzz is in the air, and the recent qualifying games have been fascinating. The group draw is coming up on December 5th, and on June 11th, the Men's World Cup will kick off at Estadio Azteca in Mexico. 2 days later, it's game day here in Massachusetts. So we'll start with you, Martha. What will the fan experience be like in Boston and Foxborough? How will fans be greeted, guided, and entertained? And what are the most common questions that you or Meet Boston are receiving these days?
Sure. Well, it's our hope that it's the best fan experience out of all 16 cities. For those of you who don't know, there are 16 cities hosting matches this year. But we really hope that people feel obviously welcomed. I think the size and scale of our city is perfect for an event like this because it's just going to be nothing but World Cup fans for the duration of the event. So we're excited about that. I think people are curious now about tickets, obviously, and that process has been underway for a bit. But also they're interested in transportation. How do we get to the stadium? What's going to happen in the city while they're here? So we've been planning. We have a great team at Meet Boston. We're working very closely with John and his team to make sure that there's a seamless experience for fans from the moment they arrive at Logan Airport, who's been very active and involved with us as well, check into their hotel, go to see a match, and then perhaps head off to another city. So we're very excited, and I think people are going to have an amazing time. And a lot of it's going to hinge on, too, which teams we land, which I know we're going to talk about. But, we want to make sure that our hospitality industry is well-versed on the different nuances and customs of travelers from across the globe. So once we learn who they are, we'll make sure that we get the word out as to how to greet each individual country delegation.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great. And I think Boston knows a thing or two about putting on a pretty good sports event, right?
Yeah, we do.
All right, so we'll turn to Charlie. Thank you for being here. Charlie, this World Cup is the first to feature 48 nations, a big change. So how does that change the dynamics of this tournament? And what are people buzzing about from what you hear from within the soccer world and when it comes to the World Cup in 26?
Well, I think first, you have probably seen the reaction from some of the countries who have just most recently qualified. There are 42 teams who have now qualified for this 48-team tournament. So I was fortunate enough to be on the coverage last night with CBS Sports on Paramount Plus. We had the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers, and Haiti qualified. And you just know, from a Haitian perspective, right? All of the adversity, the turmoil that Haitians go through, that this can inspire a country, inspire a generation. All the kids have something to look forward to. I think that's what moves me the most when covering our sport, seeing what it can do for our country and raising people's hopes and lifting spirits. But Cape Verde also, shout out to Cape Verdeans, because I know there's a lot in Boston. They qualified for their first World Cup. So some people may say, from a 32-team tournament to a 48, you're diluting the tournament, that, okay, there's going to be some weaker opponents. But from my perspective, you're just including more of the world in this tournament and giving people something to come together and unify. So for me, that's the blessing of a 48-team tournament, and we get to host it for the first time.
And the dynamics are going to be fantastic, for sure. I'd like to go right back to you, though, for another soccer question, because while there are 3 host nations, I do think that the U.S. men's national team's fortunes are a topic on everyone's mind, and certainly for our audience. What's the outlook there? How far can Team USA go?
Funny you should ask. At the moment, the U.S. just beat Uruguay 5-1 last night in Tampa. And so they're on a 5-game unbeaten streak, 4 wins and 1 draw. Now, they hired Mauricio Pochettino, a world-class manager who has coached Lionel Messi at PSG, has coached Chelsea, he's coached Tottenham, he's coached in the Champions League final. So this is a huge get for the U.S. men's national team. I think it was a rough start. He only had one year to get it right, to figure out what is the identity of this team, who are the best players, and it's taken him some time, but I feel right now, more than ever, the mentality is right. The character is right. It's where it needs to be for this team to have a deep run. So everyone should be excited because I think the U.S. has what it takes to have a deep run on home soil.
Home soil is going to be a big motivating factor for sure. Let's turn to John. The Boston 26 organization plays a very unique role in putting on the World Cup. So what have been the focal points of your work to date, and what are the main concerns as we reach just about a half a year to go?
Yeah, it's a half a year, right? Jeez, how did that happen? Well, I think it's important to note that we're not, in fact, FIFA. So we are, in fact, the local organizing committee, the Boston World Cup host committee. So we are a primary vehicle designed just to host the World Cup. As Charlie indicated, this is the first time that this tournament has ever been expanded. In the same form and fashion, this is the first time that FIFA has sort of decentralized its operations, across 3 countries, and then even more bifurcated across 11 host cities in the United States. So each one of us as a host city operating committee is responsible for telling an authentic story, endemic to our own neighborhoods, endemic to our community, endemic to the Cape Verdeans and the diasporas that make up such a rich, diverse tapestry of what the greater Boston area is. So, as a result, we have a responsibility for everything outside of about a 1 kilometer halo outside of Gillette, the stadium formerly known as Gillette, here to be named Boston Stadium in Foxborough. So we need to worry about messaging to all the fans from around the world that are coming in. But FIFA is responsible for the tournament itself, bringing the teams in, the hospitality, the signage, the sponsorship activation in and around the stadium, and we're responsible for everything else. So as Martha indicated, we're responsible for fan transit, we're responsible for multilingual communication, we're responsible for safety, security, we're responsible for accommodations, not just welcoming the world, but also making sure that they're safe, secure, and have an amazing time in Boston, while at the same time telling a uniquely Boston story. And I think that's what's really interesting about this. Charlie and I were just talking about it backstage. This is the first time that host cities can tell their story. I think when the tournament was here in '94, we were excited to welcome the world, but it was the tournament and it was run by US Soccer. Now this is run through a uniquely Boston perspective.
There's more of an emphasis on the city, to your point. So Boston can really shine because now you're shedding a light on the diverse communities of Boston. You're bringing everyone together. And I think that's where Boston can kind of steal the show in a way of being a standout city amongst the 16, because when people come to Boston, and we've had Chelsea come, and Chelsea has players from all over the world, and when I've hosted them here, every single player was shocked that Boston's not talked about more across professional soccer players, because you think, everybody's got to go to LA, everybody's got to go to New York, everybody's got to go to Miami. But everyone has loved the Boston experience when they come here. So, and that's from Liverpool players, Roma players, Chelsea players. So I think this is going to be a real great opportunity for Boston to really shine.
We created a wonderful piece of content with Joe Mazzulla from the Celtics, and they were wrapping up the interview. And the interviewer asked, is Boston ready for the World Cup? And Joe, being quintessentially Joe, flipped it on its head and said, is the world ready for Boston, right? So, that sort of flips it on its head. We are uniquely proud of our sports heritage and us as a sports city. So being able to welcome the world's largest sporting event to our hometown and be able to tell a uniquely Boston story, I think is important to all of us.
I like that attitude. We're going to show them how it's done, right? Turning back to Martha. Much is often made of the legacy of a major international sporting event, the Olympics and events like that, and the legacy that it leaves in the place that it's held. So what do you envision that to be when Boston and the world look back on the summer of '26?
Well, there's 2 perspectives we can talk about. One is we're going to be able to showcase this incredible city to visitors from across the globe. And we're hopeful that they go back and tell 10 people, and they tell 10 people and 10 people, and they come back and visit us. So from our perspective, it's a great way to showcase Boston as a leisure visitor destination that people can come back to time and time again. From a sports legacy perspective, you know, we're not new to hosting large-scale events. This is, of course, the largest we will have ever hosted. But, you know, I look back to this past year when we hosted the Four Nations face-off at TD Garden with the NHL and the NHL Players Association. That was the first time they've ever done that event, and it was so successful. They had such an incredible experience here that they're now going back and putting the World Cup of hockey back into play. So there's so many things that can come from an event like this, and I just think it shows the world that we're a world-class city. My goal in my career and in my job as the CEO of Meet Boston is making Boston a first-tier global destination, and events like this are helping us do that. And like Charlie said, you know, some people are always pleasantly surprised when they come to the city, and the city right now is shining more than it ever has. It's just in such a beautiful place. There's so much diversity every corner you turn, and I think that's really what the legacy is going to be like. Wow, Boston is not what I thought it was. It's an incredible place. People will come back time and time again.
And we've already seen a little bit of the legacy of Four Nations because the NBA copycatted it. So,
Right.
so there you go. Good.
Amazing event.
Exactly. So John, but one thing about all this is it doesn't come cheap, right? It requires
Tell me about
financial
it.
commitments. So I know how much state and corporate funding is needed to pull this off the way you would like to.
Great question. I
A
think
lot.
a lot. You know, I think that's always sitting in the back of our head, right? I mean, everything's scalable up and down. You know, we have aspirational plans and then we have operational plans, and we continue to scale up and down based on how funding comes across. You know, it may not be the most popular thing to say, but we are thankful to the federal government. They've provided $46.6 million to providing security infrastructure and cost to make sure that an event such as this is safe and secure for fans, visitors, and residents alike. And I think it's very important to call that out. Also want to thank Governor Healy, her administration, legislative leadership, the legislature, for working with us as a host committee to really help drive the first tranche of funding to support transportation infrastructure, wayfinding, signage, some of the core critical infrastructure needs. And so we're very thankful that the first $10 million was just released through conference committee. So we're very excited about that, and that there's a pathway and a conversation to potentially more money after the first of the year. And then I would be remiss in the third bucket if I didn't thank our corporate partners. And I was saying this backstage, I'm terrified because I always would forget, and I'm not allowed to say what our partners, who they are or what they will be. The first one I want to thank is Martha Sheridan, Meet Boston, for contributing the first initial $5 million to the effort. We couldn't have done it without her.
It wasn't me personally. It was the hotel community.
No, it was out of Martha's pocket. But, and I also want to thank Ron O'Hanley. You know, he, from a State Street financial standpoint, Ron put his hand up and said, let me chair the honorary board. And we're also proud to announce that State Street is also an official World Cup host city sponsor or partner. And then Sanofi Pharmaceuticals also, we're proud to announce. So we've got great buy-in, and we're continuing to have conversations. We've generated about $20 million so far from our corporate partnership program, and are still looking to probably generate another 10 more. As I said, it's scalable up and down, but I think the one thing that's been incredibly gratifying, and I think we're all here talking about the story of Boston, FIFA is prohibitive, and as they should be, right? They've created valuable IP, they have a valuable tournament. So we've always had to think, keeping our moral compass pointed in the right direction to deliver for those corporate partners. Some of them we have great relationships with here in town as well, Bank of America being one of them. So we have to deliver for those. But then the other corporate communities, the State Streets, the Sanofis, the Meet Bostons, a number of others who I can't talk about right now, don't really care so much about the World Cup per se. they care about Boston, and they care about showing up while the world is here and making sure that this is an amazing tournament. So that's the focus that we're having. It's not necessarily about the World Cup. It's about Boston through the lens of the World Cup.
Right, thank you. Okay, but now it is time to pivot to an announcement that has been planned for this session because it's related to future sports events, future major sports events in Boston. So, Martha, I would turn it over to you to make this announcement.
Is there a drum roll?
John
I feel like we need a drum roll.
Nicely. So I also, by the way, serve on the executive committee of FIFA World Cup host organizing committee. So I've been intimately involved, and I do want to thank John for all of his hard work in promoting our great destination as a sports destination, and that's really the message he's been sending to the corporate partners. But I would like to announce that we talked about legacy, and I almost wanted to say it then, but I'll say it now, that the Meet Boston has formed the Greater Boston Sports Commission, which means we will now have a formalized entity that will be able to secure large-scale sporting events such as World Cups in the future, Women's World Cup, NBA All-Star Game.
Rugby World Cup.
Rugby World
I didn't
Cup.
even say
Whatever,
that. Thank you. Whoever said that in the audience,
loud,
thank you so
whatever
much.
you guys want, let us know. But it's going to be a great partnership between our organization, who's really already been doing this work, and a lot of the corporate partners that John's been talking to that are in what they call sort of a blocked category. So we're already welcoming two very big supporters of our efforts in New Balance and DraftKings. So they're starting out as supporters to be helpful to the World Cup, but they will continue on, and all members of our honorary committee will also migrate over to become supporters of the Greater Boston Sports Commission. It's been something that's been missing really across the Commonwealth for a very long time, and we're so happy that we can now fill that gap. It is something that is sort of in transition right now. It's rolling. We'll get through this event, and then we'll look at what the next chapter is for the Greater Boston Sports Commission. And John, I know you've got a few things to add as well.
I don't even have to ask the question, right?
Well, no, I mean, I think you guys both hit the nail on the head with the word legacy. Our noses are down, we're focused on making sure that we deliver this event, but we would be remiss if we don't think about what's next. We are creating an amazing, diverse workforce. We are scaling up. We will take best practices, we'll take lessons learned, but I think one of the most amazing things is we are, in fact, the world-class host city, and from a sports standpoint. I think there was just something that came out this morning, Martha, that once again, Boston is the #1 sports city in the United States. I think that this is an export. This is something that we're incredibly proud of from an economic development standpoint. We're looking at over $1 billion of economic impact for the Commonwealth through the World Cup, 9,000 jobs. Sports as a business sometimes is conflated with fun and recreation. We've got 4 amazing franchises with the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Celtics, the Patriots. The Revs as well, but when the Big Four go and win championships, and when the Patriots go to win a Super Bowl, they win it someplace else. And the economic impact and the economic development that comes from those wins, Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics, 50% of their games when we win championships are won somewhere else. So how, if we are such a destination and a world-class and the #1 sports city in America, how do we start to reframe the thought process through the business of sports? We're so proud of what we do from a high-tech standpoint. We're so proud of what we do from a medicine standpoint, a life sciences standpoint, finance. One of our greatest exports and one of the proudest stories that we tell at every opportunity is the story of sports. So I think with Martha's vision and with the corporate community and the Ron O'Hanleys of the world saying, what's next? Right? Like how do we take this and create a blueprint and use it as a catapult or a springboard as to what's next?
I think too, what another great part of the legacy is, and we've seen this when we've won championships, Celtics were here, by the way, when they won their recent one, but how much it brings our community together. When we win championships and when we host these large-scale events, we see how much more we have in common than our differences. And I think if we can continue to make that happen through the World Cup, perhaps the Women's World Cup, World Cup of Hockey, whatever it might be, I think the pride in this community will continue to grow and grow and grow. And that makes my job a lot easier, because our best advertisements for bringing people to Boston are you guys. It's Bostonians speaking about this incredible city and inviting people to come and visit us.
Thank you for that. We have a few extra minutes, so I'd like to go to Charlie very briefly one more time because of your experience as a former U.S. men's national team player, and we know that there was an auto accident that changed your life, but you were on track to potentially play in a World Cup. What does it mean? I mean, as a soccer analyst, you've encountered players, you've encountered soccer players all your life. What does it mean to play in the World Cup, and what advice would you give to players who are there for the first time?
Well, I think from my standpoint, it was the positive reference in my life through all the ups and downs and twists and turns. It kept me going in the right direction. So for me as a young boy, you know, from a family that didn't have much, the sport is what kept me going. It kept me moving. It gave me a dream. And 1994, we talk about some of the bigger nations that can come here. Well, South Korea versus Bolivia was a match I got to go to for my 8th birthday. I had never heard of those countries before. It was the first time I got to experience watching the sport. And when I went to that stadium and I was a part of the tailgate and I was playing pickup soccer with all kids from all different parts of not only our country but the world, I felt accepted. I felt welcomed. And that's why the sport is so special, because it doesn't discriminate. It's so inclusive. And so the opportunity to be a part of that and then say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, how do I make that happen? All the work ethic that's instilled in me from the sport, that's why it's so special. And so I probably would have never made it to where I ended up making it, you know, qualifying for the World Cup with the U.S. men's national team, getting a chance to represent our country in the Olympics, all these wonderful things. I got to experience the world. And had it not been for that moment of getting a chance to go to a World Cup game, never would have happened. So that's why I'm so thankful.
Thank you. Okay, we have 1 minute left, so let's go real quick. I'll start. What nation do you most want to see play in Boston? I will say I'm going to go with France and Poland, which Poland is not qualified yet, but based on my family's ancestry, French on my father's side, Polish on my mother's side. Charlie, how about you?
I just think from the kid's standpoint of all the stars in Boston, England, 250th anniversary, you know, it's just dump the tea, you know, you got Harry Kane and Jude Bellingham. There's a lot of stars. I think that would be impactful.
All right, John.
I'm not going to pick. I'm actually going to say the Cinderella story, right? You know, Charlie mentioned Haiti. We have 2 Scots that work in our office. I still don't think they've come down off the ceiling from yesterday's win. We've seen Ireland. I'm excited to see the Cinderella story come through Boston. I think that moment in one of those teams, one of those small teams coming through the group stage and going on to the round of 32, that's who I'm going to be cheering on.
Brazil and Portugal.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think that would be so extraordinary for this community, given the demographics of this area. So I'm going with Brazil and Portugal.
Thank you all for being here, and thanks to everyone for attending the Globe Summit.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.